My WWE Survivor Series 2011 pay-per-view review. The pay-per-view just went off there a little while ago. And as far as my thoughts on the show, I thought it was a fairly good show from WWE. It wasn't a great or spectacular show, but it was a good show. You saw a number of good things on this pay-per-view from top to bottom. You saw a good main event with the return of The Rock teaming up with John Cena versus Awesome Truth. Some people might have been expecting a little more from this tag match, but I kind of got what I was expecting from it. It was mainly just to showcase The Rock's return back to WWE. He hasn't wrestled in over 7 years, and for a guy that hasn't wrestled in 7 years, he hasn't lost one step in the ring. He looked great. The crowd was really into him. Obviously, The Rock got one of the loudest pops the whole entire night. Crowd loved seeing The Rock back in Madison Square Garden. And great to see him back there, and definitely can't wait to see him and John Cena at WrestleMania 28. That should be fairly entertaining when that happens. Probably the only thing people probably wish would have happened in this match that I kind of wish maybe would happen, but I knew it wasn't going to happen, which was John Cena maybe kind of teasing, turning heel, and costing him and The Rock the match, and doing something that cost The Rock the match. I think some people were expecting that, but I kind of wasn't expecting too much. They'll probably do some of that type of stuff closer to WrestleMania, since you got a little while ways till we actually are at WrestleMania. So they'll probably do something like that down the line before Mania. But I think a lot of people wish they would have done something like that tonight, but unfortunately they didn't do that. But it was a good tag match right there, and obviously the selling point was seeing The Rock back in the ring, and he looked very good. Didn't lose one step, like I said. Then as far as the best match on this pay-per-view, it was easily CM Punk versus Alberto Del Rio for the WWE title. Them two had a great match, easily the best match on the whole entire show. Even the world title match with Mark Henry and Big Show, and a lot of people know I'm not the hugest fan of Mark Henry and Big Show. Actually, the world title match between these two wasn't that bad. Wasn't your typical Big Show and Mark Henry match. I mean, Big Show was pulling out, him and Mark Henry was doing some mat work early in the match. He had a sick DDT on Mark Henry, and then did a few other things, and he actually did a elbow drop off the top for a guy of Big Show size doing that and actually hitting it and not botching and looking good. That was something to see there. So it actually wasn't a bad match from the two. The only thing, ending disqualification, but I didn't have too much of a problem with, because the match was going on okay before then and didn't really hurt the match. And I kind of understand why they probably did it, because this is Madison Square Garden. They kind of like booking the Big Show, kind of like Andre the Giant, where, I guess they didn't want Big Show to win the title here, so they didn't want him to actually, lose via pinfall or submission, so they just had the match end in disqualification. And obviously the stuff post-match is going to continue the feud. They really did a job at post-match within that match, where it looked like you're going to see Daniel Bryan come out there and cash in the Money in the Bank. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. The crowd was hoping for it as well. They were chanting Daniel Bryan because they were looked like they were foreshadowing that. Didn't happen, unfortunately, on here, but obviously that will happen at some point, very soon, probably. Might even happen at the TLC pay-per-view, another match with Mark Henry and Big Show. Mark Henry and Big Show's laid out, one of them wins the title, or Mark Henry retains the title, one of them laid out kind of like this, and then they'll cash in it. Then Daniel Bryan might cash in then. Really, the only thing on this whole entire pay-per-view that I thought was a letdown, that I was expecting more from, that didn't live up to my expectations, was the 5-on-5 Survivor Series elimination match with Team Barrett versus Team Orton. This was really the only match that I was expecting more from. The women's match was like you'd expect, your typical women's match, even though the ending was something to remember, with Beth Phoenix hitting the Glam Slam from the top rope onto Eve Torres. And the opener with Dolph Ziggler and John Morrison was fairly good. So, fairly good show from WWE. Now, let me get into my review. The first matchup was John Morrison and Dolph Ziggler for the U.S. title. This was a good match. Saw some good back and forth action. Unfortunately, the crowd wasn't really into the match too much, because pretty much the whole entire match, the crowd was really chanting, "We want Ryder." They were chanting, "We want Zack Ryder." It's pretty much what they were doing the whole entire match. There were some spots where John Morrison hit something or Ziggler did something where they kind of got into the match, but for the most part, they were just wanting to see Zack Ryder here, which obviously, doesn't do a good thing for, John Morrison. The crowd wasn't behind him, and Ziggler, he's kind of a heel, so they're obviously not going to be cheering on him, so not a good thing for Morrison, right there, the crowd's not cheering for you, and they're wanting someone else in that match, which Zack Ryder's so over with the crowd, which I'm not the hugest Zack Ryder fan. I really don't understand why he's so popular with the crowd. And I would have even put him in this match instead of probably John Morrison, even though I'm a John Morrison fan. Would have made more sense, him being in this match, Madison Square Garden, and, have him win the U.S. title. It's just a mid-card title. It's not like you're, giving him a huge push where you're giving them world title or anything. It's just a mid-card title. And the crowd loves him so much. You got to push him at some point, which they are probably giving the U.S. title. They're just kind of dragging it on. But like I said, Morrison and Ziggler had a fairly good opener here. Ziggler wins the match with the zigzag in about 3.5 star match. The next matchup was Eve Torres versus Beth Phoenix for the Divas title. This was a lumberjack rules match with Divas outside of the ring. This is pretty much your typical Divas match, nothing too special other than the ending of the match. The ending of the match was, the spot of the match, and one thing that people will remember from the women's match on here, which was Beth Phoenix hitting the glam slam to Eve Torres off the top rope. That was something to see right there. So that's something that will be remembered right there. But other than that, the match was just, what you are seeing most of the time within, WWE Divas matches. Okay at best, kind of like your piss break of the pay-per-view, but the end of the match was at least good, and I'm glad Beth Phoenix is still, the Divas champion, not Eve Torres. As far as it, I'll probably give, 1.5, 1 3/4 stars. Like I said, what you expect from your Divas match, nothing really too special other than the ending. Then the next matchup was the 5-on-5 Survivor Series elimination match. This was Team Wade Barrett, consisting of Wade Barrett, Jack Swagger, Dolph Ziggler, Hunico, and Cody Rhodes versus Team Orton, which was obviously Randy Orton, Mason Ryan, Kofi Kingston, Sheamus, and Sin Cara. And this match started off okay. Started out actually with a shock, which I wasn't expecting, which was the first elimination came when Orton hit the RKO onto Dolph Ziggler. Dolph Ziggler was the first one eliminated in this match, which probably considering he was in another match on this pay-per-view, they probably just eliminated him first due to that. Especially not many people were expecting probably him to get the first elimination. Then after this is kind of when the match went a little downhill. This was the next elimination came when Sin Cara and Kofi Kingston, they were going to a dive over the top rope. Sin Cara botched right here, caught himself on the rope, injured himself. Later on in the night, sounded like he's going to be out for at least 4 to 6 months. So I don't know if they were just going to have someone else do the Sin Cara gimmick, or they're just going to have the whole Sin Cara character off of TV, because they can just go back to having someone else be in it. But we'll just have to wait and see what they do on SmackDown with that. But he's definitely going to be out of action for some time right there. So when that part happened, it seemed like pretty much everyone in the match just didn't know what to do next. So I don't know, was Sin Cara supposed to last long in the match or something, or just, with someone getting injured? Sometimes, wrestlers played off good, and then sometimes they're, shell-shocked. They don't know what to do, and that's pretty much what happened in this match. Then the next elimination was Cody Rhodes hitting the crossroads onto Mason Ryan. Then Barrett eliminates Kofi Kingston next. Then Sheamus, he gets himself disqualified in this match. He was, doing kicks and knees to, I forgot who was doing it to, but he got DQ'd in this match. The referee disqualified him. Then Orton eliminated Hunico. Then after this, it was Barrett and Cody Rhodes and Orton, the only one left on his team, so 2-1 right there. Seemed like Orton was going to come back, and they were going to book it like that. They didn't do that. Orton pretty much got distracted by Cody Rhodes. He hit the RKO on him, but since he was kind of distracted right there from Wade Barrett was the legal person. Then Wade Barrett picked him up with the waistland, and Wade Barrett pins him. So Wade Barrett and Cody Rhodes are the sole survivors on their team. So Team Wade Barrett wins the match. So the beginning of the match wasn't too bad. Then it kind of went down a little bit, but towards the end of the match, it did kind of pick up. Like I said earlier, I was expecting a whole lot more from this match, especially with the talent in here. You really didn't have too many bad people. Mason Ryan and Hunico were your worst people, and then Sin Cara is one of those guys that obviously he botches a lot, but there are some times where he looks okay, so he's not one of the worst guys in there. But the other 7 are very good, so you were expecting something more from this, and unfortunately, he didn't do that. But it's kind of good that he did have Wade Barrett's side win this match instead of Orton, because Orton didn't need the victory. This helps Wade Barrett, continue in his push. They're pushing him very strong on SmackDown, so obviously they're building him up to be a future main eventer, and Cody Rhodes as well. So it's good that they were the 2 sole survivors on that team. So that was the smart booking right there. As far as the match, like I said, I was expecting more from it. I would probably get 2 3/4 stars, maybe 3 stars. Wasn't terrible, but like I said, I was expecting more from it. Then the next matchup was Big Show versus Mark Henry for the World Heavyweight Championship. Out of the matches they had with each other, this is actually the one I would actually give them credit for. This is actually somewhat of an enjoyable match from them two, which I really rarely would ever think I would say that with Mark Henry or Big Show. But this was actually a good match from them two, which, I didn't really like their last match too much other than, the cool spot with, the ring caving in like they did back in the day, the second time they did it that time. And that was really the cool thing about that match. This match actually wasn't too bad. It wasn't your typical Big Show and Mark Henry match. Big Show was, pulling out a lot of things you wouldn't expect. A guy like him pulling out. Him and Mark Henry earlier in the match was kind of doing some mat work. Then, hit a DDT on him. They did do the spot kind of teasing they were going to, break the ring yet again. They sold before the match, which I thought this was something good. They kind of sold it, since the last pay-per-view, the ring caved in when these two the superplex off the top rope. They said they specially reinforced the ring so that won't happen again. So that was a cool thing to sell right there. Saying that it could happen again, but we're trying our best to make sure it wouldn't happen. So that was a cool thing to sell right there. Then obviously the thing that people are going to say they didn't expect Big Show to be able to pull off, which he went to the top rope. He was stalling for a little bit, which a guy his size is expected. I think he was kind of afraid doing this. Obviously you can tell he was a little scared. Went to the top rope, stalled for a little bit, then got up there. He actually hit a elbow from the top onto Mark Henry, which a guy like Big Show doing that is something you wouldn't expect seeing. A 7 foot 500-pound guy doing. So that was something great to see with Big Show right there. Match ends with Mark Henry basically kicking Big Show in the nuts. So that's the end of the match. Big Show wins the match via disqualification. So Mark Henry retains the title. Then after this match, this is the thing that the post-match stuff would have made more sense if they were going to have Daniel Bryan cash in the Money in the Bank, because that's what it seemed like they were foreshadowing to, since they were dragging on so long. Mark Henry's laid out. He's the world champion still. And the crowd was chanting Daniel Bryan. They wanted to see it as well. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. They kept on dragging it on so long. You're like, we're just waiting for it to see. Then, no music was playing. Big shows or Mark Henry's music weren't playing. Then, you thought maybe this could be the time of him cashing in. Didn't happen. So I'm thinking, since they're kind of teasing it so much now with, Daniel Bryan cashing in the Money in the Bank, since they've been doing it recently on SmackDown, they'll probably might do it at the TLC pay-per-view next month, probably with another match with Big Show versus Mark Henry against each other. And then if Mark Henry's still the champion, he'll get laid out yet again by Big Show, or Big Show will win the title and he won't be able to continue, and Daniel Bryan comes out there, just rolls him up, pins him, or hits it, or does his or does the label lock, and one of them taps out. So we might see that at the next pay-per-view. But for a Big Show Mark Henry match, actually wasn't too bad of a match. Especially for a match in disqualification. It didn't end in disqualification where I thought it was really bad, or it was a bad decision for them to end like that. So a lot of times I would say on paper you shouldn't end like that, which is most of the time. But I think what they did here is they're in Madison Square Garden. I guess they didn't want Big Show to become champion. They want Mark Henry to keep a hold of it. But Big Show's kind of booked like Andre the Giant, the larger than life character. So they didn't want him to lose the match via pinfall or submission. They didn't want him to look weak. So what they wanted to do is him just, win the match via disqualification. Then after the match, he looked very strong, pretty much laying out Mark Henry. So he looked very strong in the match, and thus didn't hurt him at all, obviously. And they'll obviously continue the Mark Henry and Big Show feud. Then the next matchup was CM Punk versus Alberto Del Rio for the WWE title. This was a damn good match. This was easily the best match of the night. Definitely a great match with these two. Good back and forth action, a lot of near falls, a lot of reversals. Really enjoyed this. At the end of the match, CM Punk actually locks in the Anaconda device onto Alberto Del Rio and wins the match via the Anaconda device. So Punk is once again WWE champion, so it was great to see that. And it was a great match with Alberto Del Rio and CM Punk. Definitely the match of the night. And one thing I would say you definitely need to see on this pay-per-view, I would probably give it 4 stars. I think it was that good. It was very good stuff with them. Really, the CM Punk and Alberto Del Rio do click in the ring. They work very good with each other. Like I said, a number of near falls, and you were pretty much on the edge of your seat the whole entire match. You didn't know who was going to win this match, because I was expecting, probably like a lot of people, that Alberto Del Rio was probably going to retain the title, and I was, obviously very surprised, CM Punk winning. Didn't mind him becoming WWE champion yet again. So it might have been better if they would have maybe kept the title on Alberto Del Rio a little bit longer, but I guess they didn't want to do that. They just get the title to CM Punk, but a very great match with them too. Really enjoyed it. Like I said, 3 and 3/4 stars. CM Punk is the new WWE champion. And then the main event, which was obviously the main selling point of this pay-per-view, which was Awesome Truth, R-Truth, and The Miz versus John Cena and The Rock. This is The Rock's return in WWE ring. His first time he's wrestled in over 7 years, and like I said, he hasn't lost one step. He looked great in this match. Cena looked good, and I gotta say, Miz and R-Truth, they got in their stuff in this match. Some people might say the way The Rock was kind of booked in this match, that he was kind of booked in the way where he kind of buried the other people. I understand why some people might think that, but I didn't really think that. I think, most people were expecting, obviously, what we got in this match was the selling factor, and basically what the match was to showcase The Rock. Still got it and showcase him in the ring, which with Miz and R-Truth, everyone worked very good with each other. As far as the match, maybe it could have been a little better as far as the in-ring quality, but I thought it was a good tag match, and it was obviously the main thing people wanted to see was The Rock back in action. It delivered on that factor, and at the end of the match, the show ends with The Rock bottoming John Cena. The Rock's team wins this match after The Rock hits the people's elbow onto the Miz in this match, pins the Miz. So R-Truth, not R-Truth, but The Rock and John Cena win this match. And then after this match, John Cena and The Rock are having words with each other, arguing with each other. Obviously, no mic, so you couldn't hear what they were saying. And then The Rock, hits the rock bottom on to John Cena, so the crowd really popped for that. And a good way to end the show right there with, The Rock standing in there, standing tall. His in-ring return to WWE. So good way to end the show. I would say the main event, maybe 3 stars, maybe 3.5, 3 and 1/4 stars. Good match. And like I said, you saw some good stuff on this pay-per-view. The main event, obviously, was just good to see for The Rock's return. CM Punk and Alberto Del Rio was a great match. Big Show, Mark Henry, and I'm not the hugest fan of them. I even got to admit that was a fairly good match with them too. The only disappointing thing or letdown on here was the 5-on-5 Survivor Series elimination match. I'm expecting a little more from it. It wasn't terrible, but like I said, I was expecting a little more from it. The women's match was what it was, just your typical Divas match. Really, the only thing that was good about that was the ending of the match with Beth Phoenix hitting the Glam Slam from the top. And other than the crowd pretty much looking past the opener in some ways, since they were chanting "Let's Go Ryder," the John Morrison and Dolph Ziggler opener was actually fairly good as well. So a good show from WWE. I would probably give it 7.75 out of 10, maybe even an 8 out of 10, because I thought it was a fairly good show from WWE. Yeah, that's it for my WWE Survivor Series 2011 pay-per-view review. Peace.